Hey, Bankless Nation. This is a conversation between David and Brantly Millegan of ENS, that is the Ethereum Name Service. So if you've seen folks on Twitter with their name or gamer tag followed by .eth, you know what I'm talking about. ENS gives you an NFT that represents your wallet's key pair, and that key pair, the public and private keys, are the cryptographic building blocks of this whole movement. Public key cryptography is extremely powerful and was invented by cryptographers in the 20th century. Well, it's math, so maybe it was discovered in the 20th century. Either way, this technology emerged and is finding massive use cases in crypto. Giving each of your citizens a key pair is a huge level up for individuality, security, and identity, and these things are increasingly important as we move into a digital society. ENS Domains is doing really cool things like designating NFT avatars for your wallet and integrating with the more familiar DNS domain names. To me, it feels like we're watching the user experience of Web3 emerge right before our eyes. From first principles, we see public key cryptography build into new standards of naming, identifying, and authenticating on the web. This is a fascinating conversation with somebody who's building new digital standards from the ground up. But first, we need to thank the sponsors that made this episode possible.
Living a bankless life requires taking control over your own private keys. Not your keys, not your crypto. That's why so many in the Bankless Nation already have their Ledger hardware wallet, which makes proper private key management a breeze. But the Ledger ecosystem is much more than just a secure hardware wallet. Ledger is the combination of the Ledger hardware wallet and the Ledger Live app. And if you're used to seeing all of your crypto services and favorite DeFi apps all in one spot, Ledger Live is where you want to be. Not only does Ledger let you buy your crypto assets straight from the app, but it also hooks into all of the DeFi apps and services that you're used to. Using Ledger Live, you can stake your ETH in Lido, swap on dexes like Paraswap, or display your NFTs with Rainbow. You can also use Wallet Connect inside of Ledger Live to connect to all the other DeFi apps that keep coming online. DeFi never stops growing, and the Ledger Live app grows alongside with it. So click the link in the show notes to see all of the DeFi apps that Ledger Live has, and stay tuned as more apps come online. And if you don't have a Ledger hardware wallet, what are you even waiting for? Go to ledger.com, grab a Ledger, download Ledger Live, and get all of your DeFi apps all in one space. ARBITRUM is an Ethereum scaling solution that's going to completely change how we use DeFi. And now it's live with over 100 projects deployed. Gas fees on the Ethereum L1 sucks. Too many people want to use Ethereum, and it doesn't have enough capacity for all of us. And that's why teams like ARBITRUM have been hard at work developing layer 2 solutions that makes transactions on Ethereum cheap and instant. ARBITRUM increases Ethereum's throughput by orders of magnitude at a fraction of the cost of what we are used to paying. When interacting with ARBITRUM, you can get the performance of a centralized exchange while tapping into Ethereum's level of security and decentralization. That's why people are calling this Ethereum's broadband moment, where we get to add performance onto decentralization and security. If you're a developer and you want to save on gas costs and overall make a better experience for your users, go to developer.offchainlabs.com to get started building on ARBITRUM. If you're a user, keep an eye out for your favorite DeFi apps building on ARBITRUM. Many DeFi applications that are on the Ethereum Layer 1 are migrating over to Layer 2s like ARBITRUM, and some are even skipping over Layer 1s and deploying directly on Layer 2s. There are so many apps coming online to ARBITRUM, so go to bridge.arbitrum.io and start bridging over your Ether or any of the tokens listed, and start having a DeFi experience that you've always wanted. Hey everyone, I'm here with Brantly Millegan from the ENS team. Brantly, what's up?
Hey, long time no see, David.
Yeah, long time. It's good to talk to you, man. You recently put out an article in the Bankless newsletter all about signing in with Ethereum and overall more just using your private keys to do things that are not just making a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. So to start us off here, why don't you talk about what is the greater thing to talk about like sign in with Ethereum and using your private keys that's not just like finance stuff on DeFi?
Yeah, well, I'd say the really, really deep, big picture thing is that public-private key cryptography is extremely powerful. It's one of the most important discoveries or inventions, depending on how you want to think about it, since the 1970s. Okay, and it was actually like illegal for a lot of different uses for a while because the U.S. government recognized its power. In the 90s, it became legal after the PGP movement. And then the cypherpunks were like, hey, let's get everybody a private key and it's going to change the world. Mm-hmm. And basically nobody adopted it, right? Because it turns out, moral appeals to like privacy and liberty, which I believe in, by the way, just doesn't move most people. We all know this, right? But money does move people. And so what crypto incentives have done is got two things. One, they've incentivized millions of people to get a private key. They don't even know they're getting a private key. They think they're getting a cryptocurrency wallet. Okay, so you have that. And then the other part is that it's hard for people to manage a private key. And again, goodwill is not enough to like have businesses help people do that. But with cryptocurrency, there is a huge incentive. So you have this massive, highly competitive market for wallet providers. We all know is extremely crowded. And in the last 5 years, we've seen an insane amount of innovation improvement on helping people manage a private key. Now, it turns out that if you get a private key so you can, watch the number go up, right? It has all these other happy side effects. Like you can do authentication, you can do private messaging, you can sign things to prove, timestamps and things like this.
So just to recap, we had the power to do a lot of what we're doing with private keys. We had this forever ago. The cypherpunks were probably like, you guys, like we don't have to do things the old way. We can do things the new way, which is new private keys, whatever the old way is. Like we have all these magical powers and people are like, oh, that's great that is like technically an option that we have. But everyone is like, no, I'm not going to really bother with this. But you're saying like now that like we have these multiple use cases of a private key, one of which is largely like managing and storing wealth. It's now like 100x more convenient to do all the other like non-money related things because everyone has like good private key like management and ownership.
Exactly. So think of a private key. So it's like, let's talk about the username and password paradigm, which is the Web 2 paradigm. Your password is like a very, very weak user-generated private key. Like I think in the future, when we make this flip, okay, we're going to look back as like that was the early web, this crazy time. How did people survive? Oh, you had to create your own private key. That's stupid. It's crazy, right? Nobody would do that.
You'd use your birthday or your pet's name or your child's middle name or something. Like everyone would do that.
It's stupid. Okay, right. So we can do authentication. That's one part of signing with Ethereum. The second half of signing with Ethereum is, of course, you need like a human readable layer, layer to store information, like some sort of profile. And that's where ENS comes in. And again, it's a similar thing where ENS was not designed to be a username or Web3 username or profile or anything like this. It was designed for this other use case, which is like simplify payments, which turned out to be like this really easy to understand killer use case, which then like got huge numbers of people their ENS names. And then, it turns out we can also use it for this other thing. So even like on Twitter, we've seen this happening just naturally. People are like identifying with it. They're signaling with it, with their Twitter display name. So those are the two parts. It's the private key plus decentralized naming system equals your single internet account that you own without depending on a trusted third party.
Okay. So this is fixing like the whole sign in with Facebook, sign in with Google thing. Explain the connection between the ENS name and a private key a little bit more, because that's actually that part is new to me. Is this like an identity conversation, as in like I have the private keys that go with davidhoffman.eth, so not only can I like identify it on my Web2 Twitter account, but it also acts as some sort of like pseudo Venmo like surface layer by just telling everyone how to pay me, or is it the conversation go broader than that?
Yeah, so there's this thing called reverse resolution, and we need to just like rename it Web3 username or something like this because it's confusing. Okay, so basically here's the idea. Most people, when they think of ENS, they think of what's called forward resolution, which is that you provide or enter a name and it resolves to, let's say, a cryptocurrency address, right? By the way, it could be any cryptocurrency address, or it really could be any information. Okay. Reverse resolution is the opposite. Reverse resolution is I already have an Ethereum address and I can look up to see if an ENS name is associated with that. Now, this confuses a lot of people because they think, well, what if I have 20 ENS names? How do you know which one? Well, that's what reverse resolution is. There's actually a separate like registry where everything is switched. Your Ethereum address is in the position of the name, and then you have a record, and then you designate basically one of your ENS names as the ENS name that represents your Ethereum account.
Right. So the one is the actual name of the account. The others are like just assets that it owns.
Correct. So the way the flow goes is let's say this happens on OpenSea right now. Okay. I'm logging into OpenSea. OpenSea says, okay, you connect your wallet, you sign this message, which basically proves the existence of your private key. Okay, now they have your public key. Then they do a reverse lookup. Okay, what ENS name do you have in the reverse record? Oh, let's grab that. Now you can start doing things with that. You can display that as the username. You can also now check the records of that name and grab other information. You could grab an avatar. You could grab your Twitter handle. You could grab whatever information you want.
Okay, so
all this is without a trusted third party involved.
Right. This is all a protocol. So okay, so is the real unlock here some like early primitives of identity, right? So like identity routing, as in like we can connect a name to an Ethereum address and then also pull up properties that are associated with this name and ENS address. Because ENS addresses are NFTs, that sort of does establish some sort of like identity layer because of the serialization that goes into NFTs, right? And so we are connecting certain private keys along with it. Is this like largely an identity conversation?
Yeah. So .eth names are all ENS names are NFTs,
right,
like by definition. Okay.
Right.
Yes. .eth names follow the ERC 721 standard. We're actually going to be coming out with something that can upgrade them to 1155, but that's another conversation.
Okay.
Okay. The fact they're NFTs though is not really relevant here. What's relevant is just simply the fact that you can go from your Ethereum address to the name and the name to other information. Mm-hmm. And this becomes your identity. So is
the information tied to the name and not the Ethereum address, the ENS name?
So you go from Ethereum address to name, and then from name to other information.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And this is not just an idea. So like, I had this thread that went viral, right? Then you guys asked me to make it an article and everything like this. I would nobody set out to do this stuff. This stuff was just happening naturally in the ecosystem. There's no standard or anything like this. Mm-hmm. And I just sort of and other people have been talking about it, and it just sort of crystallized in my mind of like, whoa, this is happening. And this is like a really big deal, because this is something that a lot of people have tried to do over many years. I'm not trying to bash anybody, but I'll say, the idea of a single sign-on for the internet's been around a long time. Even in the blockchain space, for a long time, there's been a lot of talk of identity, and I would just say, at least so far, like very little to show for it. Okay, it's hard. It's a hard problem. I'm not bashing it, but it's a hard problem. But what can often happen in the world is problems are solved best when they are accidentally discovered by the market. So if I had set out, I'm going to try to give everybody a private key. And then in the world, I'm going to try to get everybody this decentralized name for your identity, right? Nobody cared when the cypherpunks tried to do that. Right. But if I say, hey, get a private key for cryptocurrency, get a name for payments, and actually you can already now just do this other stuff. Now that catches on. Okay.
Right. And that's kind of what I was going with identity, right? Because especially in the middle of this NFT phenomena, like establishing a relationship between like the NFT, like CryptoPunk that you own, or like the art that you have, actually goes in line with having that be like part of the brand of the person behind the ENS name. But when you said like goes from ENS name to like more data, is that extra data, could that be stuff like, I don't know, in theory, like your age, so that you can like check into a 21 and only, if you can somehow like establish like legitimacy with a nation state, for example, can you somehow input your age or like, I don't know, any other like personal identifying information that we are used to? And if regardless of like the trust behind that, is that kind of like where you could like add extra data? Is that kind of what you're seeing? Or what could really bolster, what data in that data layer could really bolster like the identity behind someone?
Yeah. So one, you can store any arbitrary data that you want at all. It could be your mailing address. It could be your favorite type of dog. It could be anything, right? Two, right now we have no means for keeping data private. Any data that you put on ENS is always public. Right. And I would say, if you try to solve too many problems at once, you can end up like not solving anything. Right. I would say, I think we have momentum on this. And basically what we're doing at ENS is that we're trying to build into this natural momentum. And as we go along, maybe we can like, add other features or things.
Okay. So you guys are letting the market lead.
Yeah, so like another great example of this is, of course, on Twitter, there's the whole NFT profile pic phenomenon. Totally naturally happened. Nobody set out to do that.
Right.
CryptoPunks were not created for that or something. It's naturally happened. So what we have naturally manually happening on Twitter is people putting their ENS names as their name and this NFT profile pic manually. Well, on Web3, we can actually do this automatically. So we've already had an avatar record, although it's not something we've promoted much, but we actually are in the midst of creating and implementing a standard that will allow you to designate an NFT of your that you own as your avatar, which then Adapt can like even check, oh, do you actually own that NFT, and then display it.
That's sick as fuck.
Yes, and so we're going to do this for a header image. We have this idea of you could maybe designate your top 6 favorite NFTs. So basically right now, there's this guy, Achal Srinivasan, who's a great designer we're working with. We're redesigning our entire manager app around this concept. So the current manager app was created back in like 2 or 3 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, with like many of these things didn't even exist, but now they do. And so the new manager app will look more like a profile that, you have your addresses, you have links to your social media things, you have your avatar, your header. That's the vision. But it's us responding to what people were already doing naturally.
Right. No, this makes a ton of sense. Because it's attaching so many things, and the NFT aspect about this is so important, right? Because it's while fungible tokens can go in and out of wallets and get like mixed and lost, NFTs can't, right? And that's why an ENS name NFT is like obviously a unique identifier. But then if you start adding on like a CryptoPunk as like a secondary unique identifier, and then you can start, I don't know what else comes after that, but like there's just more and more unique things coming to Ethereum that, while they don't like promise that there's any sort of connection to any sort of like specific human behind the scenes, like you do get more and more assurances that there is one single entity there.
Sure. Yeah. And I have this idea that it's Web3 fashion. So NFT avatars, NFT headers, I think is going to be a big thing, particularly when we come out with this new manager thing, other things like that. Like people are like, I don't get it. Like you can just use an avatar for free, like just your picture or something on the internet. That's true. Right. But that doesn't have the same like social value. And so it's like, the way I think about it, I think it's possible that in the future, like if we said this was maximally successful, this vision, in the future, like everyone in the world would have an Ethereum account, would have an ENS name, would have some sort of NFT profile pic, avatar, maybe a header. That doesn't mean, by the way, that everybody is going to own or try to buy expensive ones. Right. It's like clothes. They just need something. Like, most people go to they get used clothes, or they shop at Walmart, Target, like whatever. That's fine. But some people get really into it, and they get Gucci or something. That's like that to me. That's like NFT profile pics. It's going to be that type of thing. Totally. Which is fine. Totally.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. Oh man, that's so funny.
Who wants a Gucci purse when you can have a CryptoPunk? I mean, CryptoPunks are cooler now.
Right. 100% they're cooler. Oh, this is fantastic. Okay. So this is just like kind of the early building blocks for some. And I think the reason why having your profile picture actually be an NFT, like on chain on Ethereum, is because everything else is on chain on Ethereum, right? So like if your profile picture isn't on Ethereum, does it even exist? Because we're talking about like the financial layer of the internet. So if it doesn't exist on the financial layer of the internet, like, what is it? Like, it's just like, it's kind of like the blank, profile, like gray profile of a Facebook person that hasn't uploaded a profile picture yet. Like, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so there was a similar flip with the internet, right? 20 years ago or so, this idea, I mean, there's the famous phrase, if it's not on the internet, it doesn't exist.
Right.
And that's not, and I had a tweet recently that was like, if it's not on Ethereum, it doesn't exist, a takeoff of that. It's not literally true, obviously, right? But it's like a proverb, right? It's like a general principle that's pointing at the fact, increasingly so, it does sort of feel like that. Right. I mean, just think now, like if I want to get a book and I can't get it on Amazon or Kindle or Audible, it might as well not exist because, I mean, unless it's really, really, really important, I'm probably not going to go digging for it.
Right. No, and it's also taking the perspective of Ethereum, right? Like if it's not on Ethereum, it doesn't exist. That statement comes from the perspective of the Ethereum, the protocol itself, right? Like if Ethereum doesn't know it exists, then according to that, it doesn't really exist. And then there's the connection of Ethereum being related to like a nation state, and nation states liking to account for everything and know that all things exist under its domain, which is actually something I'm writing about. But Brantly, this was great. Thanks for just hopping on and shooting the shit with it about this.
Hey, do we have a few more? Can we chat briefly? About
you got more ideas?
Today?
Got more ideas? Fuck yeah, let's do it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so we launched full DNS namespace integration today. This was
what's that mean?
In the making. What it means is that if you own a domain name on DNS, you can import that name into ENS with the same suffix. So like bcmilligan.com on DNS, I can have bcmilligan.com on ENS.
Okay. Doesn't all ENS names end with .eth?
They don't.
Okay.
So .eth is, and ending the technical term is top level domain or TLD. Maybe you've heard this term before. So like .com, .net, Like .eth is like that. Just like on DNS, you can have, 1,500 different TLDs. ENS can have as many TLDs as you want. Now,
I didn't know that.
.eth is the like native top level domain to ENS, and because it's native to Ethereum and has self custody and there's certain security benefits, things like this. But we've created a system where you can, if you own a name on DNS, you can cryptographically prove that you own that name to a smart contract on Ethereum, and then you can have that name on ENS. So basically, it's like if you want to use ENS, but for whatever reason you don't want to use .eth, okay, or there could even be other reasons, okay, you can. We're not going to create more top-level domains because we want to remain forward compatible with DNS, and DNS expands its top-level domain space over time. A lot of people don't know that. So this is actually a differentiator for us from other blockchain naming projects, which is just like creating TLDs and selling things. A big problem is that I'd say there's a very high degree of likelihood, if they're not already colliding with DNS, that they will in the future. And then if they collide with DNS, they'll also collide with ENS, because ENS is just integrating the DNS namespace. So the way that we're basically offering more possibilities beyond .eth, if you don't want that for some reason, is we're just integrating the global namespace. So this was a big deal. This was years in the making with lots of twists and turns. We just launched that today on mainnet.
Congratulations. So just so I'm fully understanding, like all these, other naming service projects, every one of them is making its own entire universe, its own like silo universe, and that their naming system works for their universe. But what you're saying is happening with Ethereum, and the way that ENS is separating itself is that ENS is intentfully not trying to collide with DNS, the legacy web, and instead trying to work and can be compatible with it. And so does that make there like these two universes, as in you have like the DNS and the ENS side, and these things actually speak to each other? Can you just talk a little bit more about the benefits behind that?
Yeah. So think about it as, here's how I think about it. DNS actually has like 3 different parts that we usually conflate because they usually just go together. So this is often the case, that things that usually correlate, people confuse as being the same thing, but actually they can be unbundled. Okay. For DNS, you have the namespace, which is like the social agreement of who has what name. Okay. Then you have like the social process by which that's decided. And then you have like the software and hardware that like technically runs everything. Okay. We right now are not attempting to, so these are all different things you could challenge. Say, hey, I want to manage the namespace differently. There's a certain process that the world has agreed on to do this. Okay. Or I want to challenge who owns what name, or I want to challenge the infrastructure it's running on. ENS is for the most part just challenging like the infrastructure part. And then even there, we're not really challenging it because we're running in parallel. So we're not necessarily in competition. So think of it as, davidhoffman.com, you own that name, the rights to that name in the world. And then that name can run on DNS and it can run on ENS. And we've built a system to make sure that it's always the same owner, the same person who owns it on both. So one benefit would be, you have a DNS website, davidhoffman.com, which most, everybody can access, and then say, hey, send me Dogecoin to davidhoffman.com. So just kind of link. And now from a user perspective, they don't have to even know there's 2 different systems in the background. They just know there's just a name, davidhoffman.com. In the back end though, maybe the website's using DNS, maybe the payments using ENS. That's one benefit. Argent actually was a huge early adopter of this. So our test case TLD for this feature that's been around a long time was .xyz. So, they give like Brantly.argent.xyz. They used to, gas prices have stopped it, but those were ENS names.
Yeah.
That's an ENS name. And their idea was if you have David.argent.xyz, you can use that for payments, but then also, hey, go to that in a browser, and it's like your profile, your Argent profile.
And maybe it loads up my punk profile pic too.
It could.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. MATCHA, everyone's favorite DEX aggregator, has just launched an open beta for gasless trading. So if you're trading more than $5,000 in common ETH and wrapped Bitcoin pairs, then your gas fees on MATCHA are free. And that's why you should be using MATCHA. MATCHA routes your orders across all the various DeFi exchanges on Ethereum, Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, and gives you the best possible price without any trading fees or unnecessary slippage. MATCHA has smart order routing that splits your orders across multiple liquidity sources if MATCHA sees that it gets you better pricing. Trading on MATCHA is super easy because it pools the liquidity for me into a single and easy to use platform, and has even saved me multiple times from accidentally picking the wrong DEX to trade on and getting a bad price. MATCHA also allows you to make limit orders on chain so you can set and forget your DeFi trades, and they will go through automatically while you're away. So when you're making a trade, head over to matcha.xyz/bankless, connect your wallet, and start getting some of the best prices and most liquidity when you trade your crypto assets. ALCHEMIX is one of the coolest new DeFi apps on the scene. It introduces self-paying loans, allowing you to spend and save at the same time. Deposit the DAI stablecoin into the ALCHEMIX vault in order to get an advance on the interest it generates. Borrow up to 50% of the total amount of your deposited DAI in the form of ALUSD stablecoin. Here's the craziest part. The loan pays itself back and you cannot be liquidated. Unlock your asset's potential in the ultimate DeFi savings account. And brand new to ALCHEMIX is the ETH vault, where you can deposit ETH into the application, borrow ALETH against your deposits, while having your advance gradually paid back over time. V2 is rapidly approaching, which will allow for even more collateral types, plus a variety of yield strategies to choose from. Harness the power of ALCHEMIX at alchemix.fi. That's ALCHEMIX.fi. Follow ALCHEMIX on Twitter at ALCHEMIXFI and join the Discord to keep up to date with ALCHEMIX V2 and to get involved in governance. You said, yeah, is there more stuff coming out of the world of ENS anytime soon? How big of an announcement or a partnership is that? Is that like a big deal?
The DNS thing?
Yeah, the DNS thing. Like, help me put that into perspective.
Yeah, I would say so. There's no partnership. This is just something that we're doing.
Oh, integration. Sure.
Yeah, because we're doing it in a way that it doesn't require the involvement of anybody on DNS.
Oh, that seems important, like an important property.
Yeah, so we didn't have to get anyone's permission for it. We're just using things that already exist. That's key. I would say this is. I don't want to necessarily overstate this, but one of the most historic days in the history of ENS and potentially in like internet naming, because
wow,
this what this does is makes ENS an extension of this like Ethereum-based extension of DNS, which is like huge and basically like brings an enormous amount of new use cases to potentially all DNS names, which is a huge number of things, kind of merges them from a user perspective in a certain way. And long term, this could be the first step towards actually an Ethereum-based, like an Ethereum first based naming system. What I mean by that is that currently you have to own the name on DNS first, and then you import in the ENS, and the DNS side is the canonical source of truth. But we're not trying to do this anytime soon, but let's say 10, 20 years from now, if enough people have done that, eventually, and Ethereum becomes more important, that source of truth could flip. And then Ethereum just becomes the thing. Yes. And then all these names could actually have the benefits of being fully blockchain native. So like a .eth name, its benefits are like you have self-custody, nobody can take the name from you, it's censorship resistant, you can trade it around easily and things like this, because Ethereum is its ultimate source of truth.
Right.
DNS is your ultimate source of truth. You can't, even if it's on Ethereum, you can't trade it as easily and things because you have to match up what's on DNS, right? But it's like a first step.
This seems to follow like similar patterns of other ways like Ethereum gets adopted. And it seems like a little bit like a rug pull, right? Like first you build the bridges over to DNS, and it seems to be a little bit of like a customer acquisition strategy, right? Like you're going towards the people that already exist, that already have domain names, and saying like, all right, like it's like you're airdropping them a free domain name. Is that like a fair like way to describe it? On Ethereum, on ENS, because they already have one in the DNS world. So it's kind of the way that like Bitcoin, the fair launch phenomenon for Bitcoin, they would airdrop new tokens to Bitcoin holders, right? Or we've seen this also in the DeFi space, right? So like you're airdropping an ENS high level, like top level domain towards the DNS like legacy system, trying to get them on over to Ethereum. And then in the future, when the time comes to it, like all of a sudden more value is being settled on ENS over the DNS, and all of a sudden people prioritize ENS more. And then boom, Ethereum has like kind of rug pulled the legacy system.
Correct. The only thing I would say is it's not like, oh, we have this like scheming plan to
right. No, that's my propaganda right there.
Right. It's more like I'm saying I could just foresee things going this way eventually, as we both know the Ethereum world gets like increasingly the most important part of the internet, which is happening. This is like a first step towards that. Right. But I'd say a key thing is that we're doing this in a way that maintains continuity, doesn't break the old system. Okay.
Right. It's not combative with it.
Right. And I think that's better for users. It's not helpful to users to have to break things and things are confusing or what's going on. And two, it makes it far more likely to succeed because DNS is an insanely successful protocol. It's something that the entire world uses. Like that's insane. Like that's incredible. And everybody uses it. And I think to try to like take that head on in a way that's like, oh, we're going to beat it in a couple of years or something. I think that's like insane. Right. And it's unnecessary. We can just extend it and live in parallel. And if at some point we make the flip, then great. Then it makes sense at the time, right? We don't have to be combative about it.
Yeah. Humans have already created so much value in this protocol, and there's no reason that we can like destroy all of that coordination value. We can just like carbon copy it and then take it to the next level. Is that the attitude?
Yeah. It wouldn't even be desirable to like destroy, I think, what we currently have. Yeah. 100%.
That's really cool, Brantly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else to talk about with ENS?
Oh man. So layer 2 stuff. So everything right now on ENS is on layer 1, which is obviously extremely expensive. And we're aware of this. People, tell us.
Seems appropriate for like the Ethereum naming service thing to be on the layer 1 Ethereum though. That seems like right.
Yeah. So what we've come up with is that I think some of the core logic will always remain on Ethereum layer 1, like the root zone. I don't want to get into all of this stuff, but some of the details. But basically, a year ago, Vitalik made a proposal for here's this idea of we could like use leverage layer 2s to help scale ENS. We had some like public meetings about it. And then Nick Johnson, who's the creator and lead developer of ENS, kind of refined it down to his own idea. And he calls it Durin, from the Doors of Durin from Lord of the Rings. And it's basically a system that is very clever, will allow people to store records and subdomains at any external location of their choice arbitrarily without wallets having to support every single possible external location. So like right now what's going on, wallets have to they have to specifically support Optimism and Arbitrum and Polygon. So that's like highly limiting because they're not gonna be able to support everything. With our system, we have this gateway system that if you're using a layer 2 actually doesn't create any additional trust. So you just have to support this one standard, and then you can access data from any external location. So this could be another layer 1. You could store your records on frickin' Bitcoin if you wanted to, or Solana, anywhere you want. You could store it on any layer 2 you want. You could store it on a web server. You could store it on, anywhere, as long as you set it up with the standard. So that should be coming hopefully by end of year. So for records and subdomains. So that should make that much cheaper. Then when it comes to the registration process itself, so this would be registering a .eth name or claiming or importing a DNS name. We could use the same system to basically put that process on a layer 2, the problem is that we'd have to like pick a one layer 2 that's like, that is where .eth name registrations happen, which we may do at some point, but it's like we have to wait for the space to mature, because like if we pick a place, like we move there, we're not moving again for a long time, you know, because it's hard to do.
Right. So what if you do make a mistake? Like what's say you deploy on an L2 and something goes wrong and you have to do something. What's that process look like?
No, we could always fix it. We could always just move it over. So I'm just saying, you know, there's always a fail safe. I'm just saying it's not going to be like, oh, every month we're like picking the latest, you know,
latest hot new L2.
Yeah. So we'll wait for that to kind of play itself out.
Right. Cool, man.
Yeah. So that L2 thing's huge. My expectation though, is that even that by itself may be enough to really spur a huge amount of adoption, because it's always been our vision that most people actually don't have what are called second level domains. So second level domains like davidhoffman.eth. Our vision's always been that, you know, that's fine. Many people will, or like savvy people will. Our vision has been that most people have subdomains like given to them by their wallet. It's like a Gmail account. Right. Everybody in the world could have their own email address on their own domain, but it's kind of too hard.
Right.
So like Coinbase could be like, you know, coinbase.com using our DNS integration, you know, importing, and then give every user a subdomain of coinbase.com, which doubles as their profile and to receive any crypto on ENS. And if it's using this layer 2 system, it could have no cost for issuing all the subdomains.
Yeah, right. So we have Bankless.eth. And so in theory, we can make a platform that could be like davidhoffman.bankless.eth, or, you know, your name here.bankless.eth. And if we decide to make some sort of like big platform and wallet and identity system, we could make our own like sort of ecosystem, right?
Yes, at little to no cost. You could do this now in layer 1, it just costs a lot.
Right.
Another thing to link up with that is that we've been working on something we're calling the wrapper, which is basically a smart contract that we will be releasing soon that you can wrap your ENS names. And we're debating if we should make it default or not for new names going forward. We'll see about that, but it would always be an option. That will hugely upgrade the NFT capabilities of all ENS names, and then also will make it possible to create subdomains and then lock away your control of the subdomain without giving up control of your main domain. Right now, this is not possible. Right now, like if you have davidhoffman.eth and you want to give someone a subdomain, either you always have kind of control, you could take that subdomain back because it's hierarchical authority, or if you don't want to have that, you'd have to give up control of davidhoffman.eth to a contract so that nobody controls it. It's like this binary thing, which is not very nice. Right. With this wrapper, though, you could keep control of davidhoffman.eth, give someone else a subdomain, and then lock your control away from that so that they truly have self-custody of that. So I think that combined with our layer 2 stuff, combined with even like our DNS stuff, means like 6 months from now, we could have like a whole different world of ENS names, but we will see.
Do you think there's a world out there where like ENS becomes a target of rampant speculation in the way that we've seen ICOs and NFTs? I mean, there's definitely ENS speculation, but I'm talking about like, you know,
like huge.
Right. Yeah. Some sort of manic fever.
Yeah. I mean, I think there could be. I'll say that at the ENS team, we have always downplayed any, you know, speculation stuff. People are going to do it, and it's fine. It's not like evil or something like this. But the problem is that we're trying to build a naming system, and like we want it to be useful and people actually using it. If you build a naming system that everyone's speculating, that's like no one's using for naming, you failed. Right. So we've designed our pricing, our incentives, specifically trying to at least have some discouragement of squatting. I'll also say, like, we have a Discord channel, and we actually don't allow sale discussion at all. Like, if you want to discuss, do it somewhere else, but not on our Discord channel. We don't promote that at all from our brand account. Even most of our personal accounts, we rarely, you know, we see like, oh, a big sale, it might be like, oh, that's cool, but we don't promote it at all. And we even say publicly, like, if you're squatting on some cool brand name or celeb's name, our recommendation is give it to the person for free and take the social credit, because otherwise you're just like holding back adoption, which we think ultimately hurts everybody. Like, we all benefit if all the celebs and brands and people adopt ENS. And that's better for everybody. Right. The dust needs you gotta think bigger, you know? Right. It would be better for everyone if the dust settled in the right spots. Yeah.
Awesome, Brantly. This is a fantastic conversation. Anything else? Don't want to miss anything.
What happened with a POV crypto?
Oh, we still do it every now and then. Have you been watching Twitter lately?
No, just last time I did a podcast interview with you, it was with POV crypto 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, Christian got sucked down into Bitcoin media, and I got sucked into Bankless. But we still do like maybe 1 or 2 episodes a month.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's still going on, but like it's very much like kind of it's on maintenance. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. How's Bankless DAO going?
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, pretty explodey, I would say. We have a show for every single day of the week now.
Wow. Okay, I gotta say it's pretty. It's cutting edge and innovative. The idea of having like a newsletter and podcast show, having a DAO, like it actually works and it's cool. And congratulations.
Oh yeah, no, it's been fun watching the DAO grow by itself. Me and Ryan actually aren't like super involved with the DAO. We kind of like let it have a mind of its own. Just kind of
decentralized.
Right, absolutely, yeah, and plus like we're busy as shit. Like we can't do an LLC and a DAO. So like the DAO is just very much has like a life of its own, and like it's still to this day like one of the most vibrant like DAOs that's out there.
Oh yeah, here's something I can say. So we've been hiring a lot. Okay, one job that we've been publicly looking to hire for a long time is a governance lead, and so when ENS launched back in May 2017, like the only significant DAO had been the DAO. DAOs obviously were very early. So most of ENS just runs by itself and we don't even have control of it. Like we can't take away names or anything like that. Okay. But there's a few things that still require human discretion. Like you have to set pricing, like that'd be really hard to automate completely. Cause like 50 years from now, are you going to be sure it's still going to be working?
Right.
So there's a few things like that. Also the funds raised from .eth names, like what's going to happen to that? We've always put on our website, we'd like to use, DAOs or better decentralized governance mechanisms as they develop. And we think that maybe they've developed enough. So we're looking for somebody who can help us figure out what is the best thing for ENS, then implement it and then manage it for us going forward. So that's a big thing that we're looking for as a governance lead. Right. The problem is all the people who are qualified to do that are like rich, like owning it in their life, and it's hard to hire them.
Yeah, that is a problem throughout crypto. Is that you get so many people who like have all the talent and the brains, but none of the motivation because it's just so much more lucrative to do other things. Well, you guys heard the man. If anyone is looking to be a governance lead, I think if you are an upstanding individual with a track record of credible neutrality and legitimacy, and also perhaps understand some mechanism design, maybe that's a job for you.
Great. All right. Well, David, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, Brantly. Thanks for coming on. Cheers.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.